A very good evening to you all. Every second brings a fresh beginning. Every hour holds a new promise. Every night, our dreams can bring hope, and every day is what you choose to make it. So, remembering that reflective quote, today we are starting off with the panel discussion in the JESA workshop series organized by the Career Guidance Unit in collaboration with the Career Skills Development Society of University of Sri Jayawardenepura. So, today's topic would be more interesting to our undergraduates who are willing to win the JESA awards. So, I will say the topic of our session today is the cooperative view of employability skills and JESA. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Sudat Manjula Amarasena, Head of the Department of Decision Sciences of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce and the Director of the Career Guidance Unit, and Mrs. Chaturangani Tennakon, Career Advisor of the Career Guidance Unit and the Senior Treasurer of the Career Skills Development Society for this valuable workshop. And then I want to take this opportunity to welcome the organizing committee members of JESA Workshop Series to this event. Also, please accept our heartfelt welcome to the audience who are joining us today, as you are indeed the heart and soul of the JESA Workshop Series. First of all, I would like to invite Professor Sudat Manjula Amarasena, the Head of the Department of Decision Sciences and the Director of Career Guidance Unit, to address the audience with these precious words.
Thank you, Buddha. Good evening to all of you. I would like to welcome all of you to the workshop on the corporate view of employability skills organized by the Career Guidance Unit, University of Sri Jayawardenepura. I am honored and delighted to welcome our resource person, Mr. Kapila H.K. Mitraratna, Chief Finance Officer, Alpha Apparels, and also Mr. Dilhan Fernando, General Manager, Human Resource Brandix Apparel Solutions. Mr. Johan Tilakaratna, General Manager, Corporate Communication, DEMO. And also Ms. Chandappa, Director, Organizational Development, Mass Holding, for this event. I think your the contribution is I really appreciate. And also I'd like to welcome our career advisor, Mrs. Chaturangani Tennakon, and all the students who are present for this event. My dear student, you know this JESA is one of the main program under our career guidance unit that is really important to enhance your skills and you can get good knowledge. I would like to invite all of you, please take the maximum advantage from this program. Finally, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful experience today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words of wisdom are a source of strength and guidance to us. Now, as the most important part of the event, let me introduce our panel of resource persons for the day. Chief Finance Officer at Alpha Apparels, Mr. Kapila H.K. Mitratna, General Manager of Human Resources at Brandix Essentials, Mr. Dilhan Fernando, General Manager of Corporate Communication at DEMO, Mr. Johan Tilakaratna, and Director of Organizational Development of Human Resources at MS Holdings, Ms. Deirdre Kandappa. A very good evening to you all. We are glad to hear, and it's the time for start today's panel discussion. When a graduate enters the corporate world, they are measured by their employability skills than their educational qualifications. On most occasions, even skilled undergraduates lost their chances in the job market due to the mismatched employability skills and the industrial requirements. Therefore, as the educational provider, it has become a responsibility of the university to enhance the employability skills of the undergraduates accordingly to the corporate world, and also to motivate and guide them properly. As follows: JESA Japura Employability Skills Awards is constructed to brace the undergraduates truly to this corporate world. We all know that this corporate world of different industries like apparel, medical, chemical, educational, and financials has vastly changed in the last few years as a result of the obstacles faced due to the many reasons like corona pandemic, oil and electricity crisis, and economical collapse of the country. We can even classify the corporate world into two categories, considering the situation of before crisis and after crisis. So, for first, it would be great if you all could briefly elaborate how this world of corporate has changed as a result of this crisis. Kapila sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you all, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to be with you all today. We all talk about this current scenario, crisis. Crisis is inevitable because if you take last couple of years, let me take you all through this particular period, 2018. Yes, we didn't have any difficulty, but we didn't foresee anything. But what about 2019? We had kind of situation, everybody got shocked because we had a very, very difficult situation after 2020. It's global impact, of course. It's not only Sri Lanka, it's a global scenario. So everybody had exposure to the COVID-19. Then it dragged for 2 years. So what about current scenario? Okay, we take it as a Sri Lanka, of course, have a difficult situation, but what about the world? We take the inflation. Yes, we have hyperinflation. If you take the world, of course, they also exposure to this one. Transportation cost, of course, skyrocketing in Sri Lanka. What about the other countries? You will mention about this electricity, fuel. So we can name it. So everything, of course, in scarcity. If you take a closer country, that is the neighborhood country, this neighboring country, I would say India even has the same difficulty. So here I talk about the countries. So if you narrow down it to us or organizations, corporate sector, even it's not different. I believe my sister Kandappa even might mention about this, how they worked, because we didn't have our limitation. We crossed the borders. Whenever we need the help, we extend our helping hand. So that's why you'll basically respect corporate world, because still they are doing their best. So if I take about my organization, 2021 was the best year. So it's not different to the other this corporate. My colleagues represent here also. They also tell their stories. So next is we talk about the change. Yes, change is the only thing which doesn't change this world. So next is flexibility, and we got to stay focused also. So being corporate sector representatives or professionals, we know that we got to stay focused. We got to maintain the flexibility. And here you all mentioned about the obstacles. In our case, I represent you all and all Sri Lankans. Whenever you get kind of an obstacle or obstacles, we see there's an opportunity. When you get an opportunity, what we do, we find different ways. We have plan A, B, like we have alternative methods. What it does, so it expand our capacity. That's what it happened. That's why I mentioned about 2021 was the best year. If you take about our group, even our company, Omega and Serial Alpha Benji, all we had the same scenario. So it's not different to you all. So this is all about it. Flexibility plays vital role. And finally, consistency. We maintain the consistency. So we continue this journey. So this is what I am to say. So I can tell a lot. So what about my colleagues here? They also there to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deirdre, madam.
Yes, thanks, Kapila. Can resonate very well in terms of what you just spoke of. And from MA's point of view also, I think the two main sort of, I would say success factors was resilience and that consistency. Consistency, of course, where we were able to win our confidence, the confidence of our customers, of our suppliers, and more importantly, of our people, right? So when the pandemic hit, there was so many check and adjust that we had to do. It was not only just one sort of focus area, from people to operations to supply chain, customers, logistics, finance, how you operated your CSR, and also importantly, the whole communication piece, right? The internal, external communication piece, which was very important. And we went on sort of a focus. We had a motto when we came into the pandemic, that we will be safeguarding the lives and livelihoods of our people. So that was, when we say our people, it also meant all our stakeholders. So from everything that we did, this was sort of, the motto that we looked at. There was so much of flexibility that kicked in terms of operations. And Kapila and Dilhan being from the same industry, in terms of flexibility to the operations, it's not easy, right? Customer compliance, state regulations, all of that also had to be managed. So again, resilience was again something very, very important to us. And I think it is something that our customers really appreciated in us, the resilience that we had to get back, stand on our feet, and deliver on our promises, of course, with the support of the entire ecosystem. Post-pandemic, I don't know whether it's still post-pandemic, but there is so much happening. We went from the pandemic into the financial and the political crisis in Sri Lanka, but there is a huge sort of impact globally as well, and we see a softness of the markets happening even right now, and the agility that we brought in, the flexibility that we brought in, sort of continues to support us in this journey. And I think, yes, it was it was a good year. 2021 was a good year for MAS as well. And that actually supported us to make sure that we safeguarded the lives and the livelihoods of the people around the ecosystem. In terms of financially, we were able to do that. So I would say the pandemic was a huge sort of learning from A to Z in the organization, from how we recruit to how we train to how we manage our supply chain to logistics to finance to CSR. It was a learning journey, and it is continuing to be a learning journey for us at MAS. Dilhan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chandrapa and Kapil. First of all, let me thank JESA, inviting me. I'm coming to this, JESA forum for the first time. So thank you very much for the organizing committee giving me the opportunity to come. And in fact, I thought since Kapil, all three are being in the same industry, the challenges, what we face and things that we do is somewhat similar. But I just thought since the students, for the beneficial of the student community, apparel, I'll just go a bit, COVID we spoke, but if you look at the apparel industry, the challenges that we faced, somewhere in 2004, we had this, multi-fiber agreement going away. And we talked about quota system where it went away, and we had kind of a big fear whether we would collapse or not. And then somewhere in 2008 and 9, we had this global economic recession. So prior to COVID, I think COVID we spoke. So this industry phase, I thought to give a sort of an insight about the industry, but we managed to, increase our sales and grow over time. So that is something positive. And I think what I heard even MAs to what Kapila said, that, we had a, not that bad year, but we managed with all the, the challenges. But I felt, mainly we felt in the COVID pandemic, this was the first time that our customers, suppliers, our logistics, everything were, impacted, right? That is something that we never experienced. But having said that, I also, endorse the point what Chandra, right? She said, like, even still we are in crisis, not that we are out of the crisis, right? Yeah. So still we are trying to, weather the storm. So the other side, what I see in our apparel industry, we have front-end operations where you get these merchandisers, marketing team, the central sourcing, the planning sits in one building, and then we have factories. So both working mechanisms were challenged and changed. With the pandemic, we all know, if you see at a factory, we need people to come in. They have to come and they have to sew garments, and that is how the production happens. So, so we had a challenge to get people, and even the focus from a plant GM. I'll just give a bit detail about the operation. Plant GM focus for the KPIs were not the priorities during this time, right? So we had a lot of protocols being introduced. Occupational health and safety protocols, like, we all know the social distancing, wearing mask, and, have the basic, like, behaviors like hygienic practices. So all gave a kind of a different outlook to the operations. And if we are taking 10 meetings, example, in a week, at least every meeting, the first topic is about safety. As whether our people are safe, have we taken the necessary precautions? So all were kind of different, kind of working model altogether. So that was something we observed at factory level. But if you come to the front end, where you get a different kind of set of people. We all know, like, people from different backgrounds. Because they work with customers, they work with suppliers. So the demand came to make the things, flexible working. We didn't have anything called flexible working prior to this crisis. So flexible working, I can still remember in 2020, this was badly impacted somewhere in March or April, somewhere there. So then we had to introduce, from HR, we had to introduce a lot of policies, like flexible working policies. And on top of that, policy being introduced is one, but when you want to really implement, a lot of systems need to be introduced. And then people were changed to virtual meetings. So you have to get new platforms like MS Teams. Installation of a platform is one, and then training the people. And when people work from home, they have a lot of grievances. The data connections, and in fact, I can give a classic example. We were used to give dongles to people, but then we had to give routers, and the data limits had to enhance, because always, in a crisis, being in HR, our objective is to retain people, right? People make the difference. If you lose critical talent, then we'll be nowhere. So likewise, there were a lot of, what I see, a lot of digital solutions were introduced. Those were anyhow, not that those were not there in the plan, but we had to fast track and get a lot of kind of digital solutions in this journey. That is something that what I feel, not only the front end anyhow works with a lot of systems, but even at factory level, we had to introduce a lot of systems. So that is something which I feel at a corporate setup, the flexible working to that piece plus the technology piece played a kind of a pivotal role in the journey. But still, as you all know, still we are in the crisis. Even this evening we had a meeting. I should give this update. Even the COVID is again rising, right? Even but it was told now somewhere next week we have to again put the protocols. We relax a bit, but again the challenge is back. I hope it's common for the apparel industry. So that's what I thought. Anyways, I think I added for Kapil and Chandra, so I didn't repeat. So thanks. Over to you, Harshad. I think we have Johan as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. So good evening,
Yes.
everyone, and thank you very much
Johan,
for the
sir.
invite. Yes. So you can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So good evening to everyone, and a big thank you to University of Sri Jawaharlal and also to the organizing committee if you are inviting me. And it's nice to get to know Kapila, Dilhan, and Deidre. So hi to you. This is the first time I'm meeting all of you. So I think the question was how the corporates behaved before and how they're operating after, or still not after, but during the pandemic. So I think at the beginning, the entire status quo was challenged. That's the biggest thing. I mean, like, for example, in our corporates, we have things that we shouldn't do, couldn't do, and so on. And all those were shattered. All those were challenged, you know. And then the biggest thing was digitalization played a big role. I mean, like customers couldn't come to the showrooms, you know, then we had to reach out to them in a different way. Employees couldn't come to work, you know, then they had to do other things. We couldn't show products in physical nature, then we had to show them in different ways, you know. Deliveries couldn't happen, then we got all these apps coming in, supermarkets coming in, doing their own thing. So a lot of changes took place. So I think that's a big positive side, because now it has shown the people and the corporates, you know, of course, things can be done differently. And then a lot of flexibility and adaptability came into being, you know. Adaptability and agileness was the key thing, because some companies took a lot of time to change. Some companies changed within few days. So that was also a very important thing to notice. The other one I noticed before and during the pandemic was in simple terms, we call it cost cutting, but cost optimization. I mean, like companies started saving in areas which you never imagined you could save money from. Okay, and this gave a whole new perspective of cost optimization. Even when people were at home, I mean, like working from was never heard of, exactly as Dilhan and the others said. But then we had to embrace it. And when we embraced it, we found there's a lot of cost optimization that came on board, which benefited the organization. I mean, like the pure concept of desk and chair was challenged. You know, I'm like, if anyone said before pandemic, I want to work from home, we will think he's crazy. You know, and he's trying to, you know, play the fool. But now look how things have changed. And it's not work from home, it's actually work from anywhere. You know, that's how it has changed. Now, that's one reason why I can't switch on my camera, because I'm in a fuel queue. But I'm doing this session, but I'm in a fuel queue, so lighting is pretty bad. That's why. And then this whole concept of digital nomads came into being, you know, where companies started allowing people to work from different places as long as the work gets done. I mean, like, it's a huge step, especially for a country like Sri Lanka, where you believe in monitoring, seeing their physical presence, and so on. Okay. And another thing was every corporate's vulnerabilities were unleashed, you know. I mean, like even the best of the best suddenly found that they were never prepared for things like this. And it took them by surprise, especially the IT preparedness. Exactly as Ilhan said, from the hardware requirements to software requirements to IT security and even training. I don't think anyone was ready for this. And it took time. And, you know, some took a lot of time. Some didn't even know what to do. So that itself showed, you know, sometimes what to learn from the book and when it actually happens, you know, is miles apart. And also our culture also played a big role, because we still like to see people in physical presence. We like to see people, if they're working from home, are they really working from home, you know? So a lot of changes had to take place, you know. People attitude had to change. Okay. And I think especially Deidre will also agree, working from home was a big challenge for ladies, especially working moms, because meetings may not end at 5 o'clock, you know, sometimes they drag beyond 5. So all these were big challenges for corporates. And the other one was leadership was challenged. You know, I mean, like leadership was good to, you know, get the sales done, get the market shares and all those things. Suddenly a crisis hits, a pandemic hits. They never knew about it. They haven't heard about it. So leadership itself was tested. You know, do they have empathy? Do they have compassion? Do they really show it? You know, is it only limited to a letter or so on? You know, camaraderie and all those things were tested. And the best leaders had to learn unlearn and come out and show, that they could tackle this. The other one was something related to corporate communication is crisis management. I mean, like we all learn crisis management, but this was our first actual crisis. And it's completely different to what we learned, because it's the external forces, what happens, how soon things happen, especially during the pandemic, especially when your employees get COVID, and then, it becomes worse, how you react. All those things were new experiences for us. And last but not least, what we have found out is sometimes we feel that some managers really perform very well because it's good times. But during a crisis, especially during pandemic, the extra special came out of the best, because a lot of people, didn't know what to do. They got excited. And actually, when things go bad, only you will find the really good people. And that's what a corporate needs, So these are the changes that we saw pre-pandemic and to pandemic. And I agree with Deirdre, the pandemic is not yet over. So we cannot call it post-pandemic is a question. And coming to comms, something small, the comms had to be special because you had to be sensitive in your communications, internal, external, and you had to show empathy, especially because it was tough times for people. You cannot talk about parties, you cannot talk about luxury spending. You had to be very, very concerned. And the people who did that type of communication, succeeded. People thought they are also sharing their, emotions and so on. And we saw them doing well. So that's from my end.
Okay. Yes, thank you all. Likewise, these changes also influenced in the pattern and requirements of the corporate environment, resulting in an unsuited qualifications of the undergraduates in the modern working culture. So it's a key task to understand the modern requirements and considerations of different employers. So the next question is, what are the employability skills expectations of the employers from an employee in the most recent job market with all the changes in working culture? And how do the undergraduates upgrade themselves to these requirements? Mr. Dilhan, sir?
Okay, I mean, I being in HR, thank you. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, what I wanted to tell is like, I mean, the basic competencies still remain. I mean, likewise, your presenting skills or communication to, planning, organizing. So because the job demands that. So so whatever the skills, I mean, the every company has a competency framework, right? So depending on the level, these I mean, the weightages might get varied. I mean, at Brandix, we talk about leadership framework. So there are various words being used. But I mean, apart from the basic, I mean, it's not that you forget the basic competencies. Apart from the basic competencies, what we saw during this, I mean, the challenging times, one is I mean, Deirdre spoke about it being, I mean, resilient, right? Resilient and perseverance are like crucial behavioral competencies which we felt. And also, I mean, simplifying things, how you navigate, I mean, your positive mindset, I mean, those are very critical. I mean, because now if you even switch on news, there'll be, I mean, a lot of negative stuff that comes into your mind. I mean, that you see, but the expectation from an employee is to, I mean, there won't be anyone who is coming behind to motivate you always, right? So sometimes it is how you see things and how you analyze things. So those things are something very important for everybody. What I feel, even especially for a university graduate, I mean, you might be very focused on the defined sort of competencies, but these are the new additions that are coming in. I mean, one is capacity to be flexible, right? I mean, we might think that the job looks like this, but moment you enter the corporate, I mean, first few months would be a totally different game altogether. So there's a slide, our issue. Anyways, I'll carry on. Yeah, and also the other challenge is the, other thing which we saw is the digital mindset. We all talk, we are getting into a kind of a digital transformation journey, and things are, even that what you said, the digitization, that the first phase, that is also happening. So you need a kind of a person who has that mindset and like to work with systems. So those were the main, I feel, the things that students should focus in. And additionally, I thought, say, also one thing what I feel is like, you knowing about yourself, having that awareness about yourself will take you a long way. So that's true. When you are exposed to different scenarios or different situations, only you will really know about yourself. That is what I felt for our students. It's good always to know yourself. And also other thing is the values and principles. Now the company, if you see, if you take at Brandix, yes, we look at competencies, but now we look more into the person's values. These are not visible, right? Your skills to qualifications are much visible, but your inner motives, the intents are something we really, concern of. So your values and the principal side. And the last piece what I felt is how you work in a diverse culture. Now, diversity plays a bigger role in, I think, in all organizations. We all know that, university, the fresh graduates, they be in Gen Z and they step, and we have been trained how to handle Gen Z, and a lot of trainings happen, right? But I feel it is the other side is a university student to understand. Obviously, you have to work with Gen Y, Gen X people, right? So you all also, it's a kind of a duty to do some research, understand, because diversity is kind of thinking independently together, right? So you have to have that mindset of, collaboration, accept different views. So that is something very, very important. If you get a different sort of view, how you center your idea and how you collaborate is something, but I feel tomorrow the demands would be like that. Not forgetting the existing, our normal competencies we all talk about. So I think those are the things that how I see that the students need to be focused. So that's from my side.
So, Dilhan, 100% agree with you. And I think the panel would agree with me, as much as the university undergrads are talking about the skills not being relevant, we also had, that whole reskilling or bringing new skills into our existing employees as well, including you and me, right? Because we were people who were very used to in-person meetings, dashboards all over the place, looking at visuals when we do meetings, etc. And there were learnings for us as well, undoing some learnings that we had, and getting ourselves also bringing that flexibility, that learning agility to what we were also hell-bent on doing. So as much as the undergrads, we, although being in the corporate world for many years, also had some sort of learning and unlearning to do in the process. So if we look at some of the competencies, just one or two more that I'll add to Dilhan's basket. I think with the current work arrangements, or that whole flexibility sort of kicking in, I think self-leadership is something that, one must possess to be able to sort of, direct yourself and make sure that that decision-making, as a leader would do, that you also have that self-leadership. And again, with everything that's going on, you have your flexible work, you have a pandemic, and then you have your current crisis that's going on. The mental flexibility, right? How do you sort of have that self-care? And although it is not listed in books and as a critical skill, it is something that we all need to possess now, undergrads and people who are already in employment, who where you have that mechanism to have that mental flexibility, because there's so much going on, right? And Johan also touched about this, about how we moved very fast, how we had to move into the digital space. So that digital fluency is also something very important in terms of a skill, and the resilience we spoke about, and emotional intelligence. In the world that we are working today, a piece that is very important: how aware are you about yourself and everybody else around you? How do you sort of behave and adapt? So emotional intelligence is also something I would say that's very important. And I mean, you all know this famous quote, right? People hire for attitude because skills can be trained, right? So, and again, as Dilhan mentioned, something that organizations are looking and becoming very focused is about one's values. Every organization by now have set up their vision, mission, and their values. And for us at MAS, we also have a purpose for the organization. So something that we really look at is how aligned our employees are. And it's not a skill, it's something that you bring. It is something that you bring from your family, from your school, from your upbringing, the values. So that is actually marketable as much as the skills right now. And if you come in with the right set of values to the organization, achieving your KPIs, achieving your goals is going to be so much more easier, because there is collaboration, there is humility, there is respect, things, values like that around it. And the other piece again, which is very important in a VUCA world like today, is how you accept and give feedback, right? The communication part. It's very, very important for one's development to improve, you know, the work process or how we do things in an organization. So how one accepts feedback and also gives feedback is also a skill, something that is really very important that I would add to the bucket. Kapila, your thoughts? Kapila, I think you might be on mute.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Deidre. Because she touched about this physical versus basically virtual. Because this environment, of course, tells us to go beyond that. Because as basically Ilhan even mentioned, and our Johan also, because we got used to physical meeting, but then it became virtual. And now, where are we now? Now we are in hybrid situation. Whenever you talk about this corporate sector, you must be thinking that employees are basically thinking about the experience. You will have 6 months experience, basically 1 year, and you will move up in this ladder because you will have a very good, solid foundation. There's no doubt that we also follow these footsteps. Only different is their life is completely different. Sometimes we must have basically stood our own 2 feet and all. So you also have the same situation. And if you take about this JESA objectives, like you will mention about that, to bridge the gap between the students and the corporate sector. Yes, this is what we are doing here. And once we mention about this particular, skills, okay, we talk about employability skills. Employability skills, of course, we can split it into, fundamental skills, at the same time, personal management skills. Not only that, and they did very clearly mention about teamwork skills, and she mentioned about communication and leadership. If we mention about this, if we go beyond that, it tells us that at what time you go to speak, and at the same time, we go to listen also. That is also one of the skills we expect you all. And next is, once you gain this experience, probably you come from this particular sector. University students, of course, they are not mechanical, because you all are thinking differently. So it's really valued also, because that is when to guide. Okay, whenever we need your guide, even we respect you all, we accept that. And next is your support. That is really vital, because if you take corporate sector, let me tell, in finance terms, we expect profitability, because it's like this. Whenever you step into this, your contribution will be 100%, but we expect 120%. That's how we move forward, because that's the way we move forward. And whenever you step into this, we extend our helping hand. We extend our both hands. So being these humans, of course, they are social animals. We work together. And there may situations you will have to take one step back. Yes, we are doing that. So you all are capable, only difference is we want you to be a leader and we want you to lead, not passengers. There may be situations that we expect you to be passenger. That's the time you listen. But together we can take our organization to the greater height. Because that expectation we are having. We expect you all to continuously contribute. Because probably you must be thinking that, okay, this situation, of course, it's very difficult for me to understand or basically do contribute. But whatever passion you are having, because you all are the cream of the country. Because you all pass grade 1, 5, 10, 12, then university also you get through in flying colors. Only thing is you got to have a match basically. That is, of course, your knowledge and experience. Corporate sector, of course, we expect you to do contribute. So this is what we expect, and there's no rocket science. We also came step by step. I mean, probably with all the facilities and the technology, as they mentioned, digitalization, everything, sometimes you learn and you gain this particular knowledge and experience. Probably we must have spent about 10, 15 years. But what about you all? Probably 1 year, 2 years time. So it's a passion you are having. So you are there, almost there. That's why I mentioned about 6 months experience. When you step into an organization, we let you to learn from A to Z. Isn't it, Dilhan? Because we let them to go through an organization processes. But sometimes we don't get that opportunity. We must try to learn finance, HR, probably operations, only one area, but you all have that opportunity. Please grab it. I mean, we are there to bridge that gap. You are there to help us to bridge that gap. This is all about it. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think Dilhan and Deidre spoke a lot of things that I was planning to say. So, and I'd like to mention something that Kapila was saying. So before I start, there's a nice quote exactly on what he said. My CEO used to tell me, people should listen to understand, people should not listen to respond. Because that happens a lot in Sri Lanka. You're just waiting to respond and just listening without trying to understand what the person says. So, that Sri Lanka needs that a lot. Listen to understand, but not to respond. So I'll tackle this question about employability and mismatch of, capabilities or characteristics or whatever. So I'll take a little bit of a different route, hoping that the undergraduates will gain something for it. So I have interviewed a lot of people, from trainees to interns and so on. So most of these undergraduates, when they become graduates, they will join either as a trainee or an executive, maximum senior executive, maybe occasionally as a junior manager. But then what happens is they suddenly come to this corporate world, and that's when everything starts. So what I would like to say is it starts at the interview itself. So these are just some pointers that I gathered. I spoke to a few people also. I'll just quickly run through. So the first thing is interviews do not allow us to find everything about the person. Of course, we all know the interviewing person, the interviewee is also acting. I mean, like all of us, when we go for interviews, we act as, the best we can be. But that is not the right animal inside us. Okay. The other one is, when you go for an interview, your soft skills make the first impression, then your hard skills make the next impression. But what will keep you is the attitude. Okay. So first of all, if I talk about this mismatch, now I don't sometimes agree with this word mismatch because it depends on the role. An accountant role is different to a marketer's role, is different to an HR person's role. So sometimes you would want the accountant to be a communications guy. I cannot go up and say you need to learn English, you need to do presentations. No, his role is completely different. So the mismatch is dependent on the situation. That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing is I'll talk about hard skills, soft skills, and attitude. So the first one is exactly as the gentleman and the lady mentioned, hard skills can be trained. So the corporates know that. It can differ from a person to person. It can be even relevant on the age. For example, the marketing syllabus I did is completely different to what the kids are doing right now. They know much more than I know. I can't even challenge them. So the relevance also changes. And the other one is sometimes we find that whatever we are taught as hard skills do not come into use at the beginning when we join a company, because it is more of it's more of strategic, level that we've been taught. It's more of planning. But soon as you join a company, you are more of an executive or a junior manager where it's more operational. Coming to soft skills, what I've seen, if maybe this mismatch is, one is people can still develop those things. Okay, they need to be open about their soft skill, because if you're not honest about your soft skills, you will never improve them. I spoke to a lot of university students before coming to this forum because I need to learn the real facts. And they said there's a lot of fear, because fear in them to learn certain soft skills, especially communications, and even the culture affects it. Okay, I think this is prevalent sometimes in state universities also. And also now, and that's why I'm very glad that we have such programs like this one run by University of Sri Jawardhanapura, because you don't necessarily find institutes encouraging things like that. You just get the syllabus done, you just become a graduate, and you're thrown out. But what matters most at the end is attitude, because exactly as I think they said, it cannot be developed. Okay, and the funny thing is, it cannot be checked during an interview. You only start finding the applicant's correct attitude once the person is at work, especially once that person is given a challenging task only. Then only you see the real animal. So these are the instances where this mismatch can happen sometimes. But in general, I've interviewed a lot of people from the state universities. What I've found is, I'm like, this might be a little bit bitter, but I think I need to be honest and open, is the communication skills. This is where the biggest mismatch comes. Like, there's no doubt in terms of the knowledge, brilliant knowledge, especially on the marketing graduates, but where we feel sad sometimes is their communication skills. So what happens is they haven't been trained to speak or even sometimes to write. And when I spoke to some people, what I found was, sometimes though the degree is in English, there are translations happening. Some parts are taught in Sinhala, likewise. And in certain courses, when you're doing it in English, you're sort of discriminated. I know, I'm from Columbia University. I know sometimes in the Faculty of Arts, when some people doing it in English, they were like discriminated, big-headed. You are, the posh set. And that itself makes people have a fear, a reluctance, to learn English. So that is also not good, sometimes prevalent in state universities. And then what we find is, we sometimes benchmark and the wrong people to learn, and sometimes we do not have someone to correct us. That's a big thing that we need in these in some universities and in some faculties, because once these people come out, these quality graduates come out, we feel sad because they know a lot, but they find it a little bit difficult to convey it to us. Okay, and another thing that I want to say is, mismatch comes also from, exactly as these lady and gentlemen said, their people skills, analytical skills, problem solving skills, and leadership skills. So leadership skills, Deirdre touched on that. People skills are very important. End of the day, if you are going to be a manager and above, you need to be a people's person. That's it, nothing else. If you cannot manage people, if you cannot manage conflicts, if you do not know how to work with another party or get your team to do things, it's not going to be easy. So these skills aren't taught anywhere. These skills, exactly as they said, comes from your school, comes from your society, your family, your environment, and so on. But you can help people to develop these. The other one is problem solving and conflict. Now, that's a big negative that we have with these virtual meetings. Like, we all do virtual things. You meet person to person, you don't know how to solve an issue. That affects even up to the highest level of, even marriages, because that is the issue we have even at an office. Like, the boss and the subordinate works virtually. When they meet, when they have an issue, they don't know how to solve it. Maybe our generation, we go out in the evening, we do something else, we talk to them, we know how to, empathize with them. So these things are sometimes not there because of I cannot blame anyone, but it needs to be developed, or it needs to be put into certain, I don't know, courses or so on. That's one thing. The other one is this generation, we never had mentors. I think all of these people might agree when we were young. But mentor is a very important thing. They can definitely identify the gaps you have and what you need to do. So at the end, what I want to say is one more thing. I've also found about grooming. Now, that's one difference I find state universities against private universities, So this grooming is also very important, and it can be taught. It can be taught, So that is also very important as a first impression when you go to corporate. So at the end, what I want to say is, if you're talking about the soft skills gap or a mismatch, most important thing is you have to be honest and you have to know your gaps. If you're not honest, you will never improve yourself. Next one is find the possible solutions and then commit to it. Why I say commit to a solution is sometimes we just do a class, we just do a course. That's not going to work. Commit to an option, and last but not least, keep on practicing it, keep on doing it. That is the only way you will improve. May it be communications, may it be leadership, may it be conflict management, leading a team. Keep on practicing. That's the only way you will get through it. And things like doing professional courses, things like Isaac, Rotary, Leo Club, doing sports. If you're a sports person, you will definitely find these people a little bit different. These are the things we need people to get involved. And organizing events, come across all sorts of problems. Okay, so these are few things that I see can help, to bridge the gap in this sort of a mismatched world. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now we have an idea on how the working culture of some industries is going on and what are the most important employability skills that someone needs to grab and maintain in this culture. So the third question is, what are the flaws that you have noticed in interviews during the past 2 or 3 years in recruitment process of fresh graduates in virtual platforms instead of physical interviews? What are the areas that they were lacking on? Starting with Ms. Deirdre.
Thank you. Very good and relevant question, I must say. And I think while we were answering to the first question, also there were certain areas that we sort of touched upon this. And I actually did a few calls today and yesterday to some of my colleagues who actually handle the undergrad sort of recruitment, because I wanted to have some hands-on feedback, and it was amazing how they just poured their heart out on how some of you may lose opportunities or how some of you unknowingly seem unprepared, right? So some of the things that they shared with me was like, irrespective of whether it's an interview or any meeting, especially an interview, you have to make sure that you find an appropriate place, because it's going to be virtual as we are talking right now. Find an appropriate place. It might be challenging, but make sure that it is less disturbance, where you can focus and where you can have a very sort of open conversation. Ask, maybe there'll be confidential questions, there'll be discussions about your compensation. So make sure that you sort of have a suitable sort of place. And if it is about your future, right? You're going in for an interview. It is about your career. It is about your future. So even if it means that you have to sort of maybe invest in a little bit of, the small light, so that, it flashes on your face, so that it's, it's clear to the person who interviews you. Do that. You can do it with something that you have at home, right? But give that importance to it, because it's about your future. And one person told me, when people come into the interviews physically, they don't look at anything. It all comes from the heart, right? Maybe you've done your homework, but it comes from the heart. And there is so much that you can get from the body language, facial expressions, etc. What they say is sometimes, very often, they feel that the candidates are looking at maybe a short note or a paper, or maybe the CV or something, and they're sort of focused on that, and it's not genuine conversation, right? They tend to get distracted with the notes that they've sort of taken down. So these are practical sort of a few things that they told me. And sometimes when you go in for an interview to an organization earlier, you might meet someone that you might, which gives you that confidence, which takes that sort of nervousness out of you, right? And that's not there now, right? But make sure that you sort of speak up, because that's the only sort of measure. Yes, you see a bit of your facial expression and your body language, but it's not like meeting you in person, shaking hands and having a cup of tea or something like that. So express yourself, right? Speak up, talk about everything that you've done, talk about all your engagements, challenges that you faced, give examples as much as possible. You have to basically speak, because the messages that we used to get from your body language and facial expression might be minimal at this point. So those were the few things that they gave me, and I'm sorry, I personally sort of don't do many interviews as I used to. So Dilhan, Kapila and Johan, if you all have more to add, please.
Yeah, I think the review was spot on, and I think because I also believe all would have kind of similar challenges, because if I would, I think you covered the background bias, like unfortunately when you come to, I'll just add only a few points to what they spoke now. When you come to an interview to a place, you get physically, you get ready to face. But now some people, when they connect through these virtual platforms, and they are not thinking the background, the disturbance that coming in. But unfortunately, if there's something if some kind of a bit noisy setup, the candidate would be at a disadvantage. So those things are something that you need to be very much concerned of. Obviously, we know other challenges like infrastructural challenges, connectivity issues, the speed or the functionality issues. So you have to, because anyhow, the interviewer to a greater extent will be logging in from the company, right? So there won't be much disturbances, because he's anyhow kind of prepared to interview. As Johan spoke earlier, people are sometimes, yes, ready to give answers. They are kind of, but always keep in mind, corporate, we have been trained, from HR, we train the hiring managers to understand that not visible part. Yeah, now, I thought to quote this, might not be relevant for the specific question, but now we try, earlier days, we always try to understand the person. When a person talks big about himself, if you are getting a bit experienced guy on the achievements of achieving his KPIs and all, but today we always try to put the situation first. So sometimes when you can give no, I'm not saying people are giving, but keep in mind the interviewer judges every second way you answer to questions. So but one did what I was also thinking to tell this. When you are on a virtual platform, certainly that sense of interpersonal skills, the social skills, kind of observing the body language and all, is a challenge for us. So that is something really challenging, because we feel when a person enters to a premises for a physical interview, he or she also get an opportunity to see the setup, see the culture. You get a feel of the culture when you enter to a premises, right? So that part is also missing, for the candidate. So the challenges are those, but we have to keep, as a student, we have to keep in mind, when you go to a physical interview, you get prepared, you get properly dressed. So have that same focus when you are logging into a virtual interview. So that's one. And one other thing which we observed, we were doing kind of assessment centers on virtual platform, right? Because when we everyone had a thought, no, physical assessment centers give us more insight of individual, but given the challenge, yes. But there, what we observe about like authenticity of conversation, the materials can be questionable. I mean, because we only see person through this camera, but lot can happen. But one thing I want to tell, I mean, that's what I told in my early one. Start, I mean, thinking your understand your values and principles. Because if you take at Brandix today, our executive pipeline mainly comes through internships. Okay, and at an interview, you can tell. I mean, if you are not honest to yourself, if you are not telling something truthful, but moment you put on to the game, I mean, to expose to the situation, I mean, it totally tend to judge, right? So I mean, so it's always be honest to yourself. But I mean, yes, there are a set of challenges, but be prepared. I mean, you give the same focus and same attention what you give when you go for a physical interview. I think rest I think you covered, so I don't want to repeat it. So you made my life easier. So to you, Kapila, yeah.
Thank you, Dilhan. And you both made my life easy, because if I am to talk about Deirdre, because she mentioned about it, and did you notice the way, I mean, the way they talk? Did you see their hand gestures? See the motion they had? So Dilhan and Deirdre, the way they were basically moving their hand, they didn't move the hand like this. Right? So that even you can learn. Next is Dilhan, because we mentioned about this virtual platform. So whenever you go ahead with this virtual platform, you save your time. So that time you can use for the rehearsals. And next reason, if you notice that my colleagues, of course, they look at this green or like white light, that is camera. So that is one of the requirements we see, as they clearly mentioned that we are hiding behind the note. So we can notice it because we have been trained for that also. Because you got to think about it. If you are to spend 1 hour to go there, because probably if it's a physical meeting, you will have gone there within basically 1 hour before or probably half an hour before. So you can capitalize it. You can use that time to practice it. I am also highly particular about this attire. I mean, no matter whether you go physical or basically virtual atmosphere, you got to have that one, because that counts a lot. As Dilhan mentioned correctly, first impression counts a lot. You got to have that one. You got to get ready for that. I mean, you can talk to the others, and end of the day, probably you will, have the exposure to the physical environment. You have to work physically or virtually. I mean, that's the good experience you are having. Like Dilhan mentioned, of course, we are in probably we are at office. Of course, the particular environment was very, very clear. I mean, they can listen in such a way. Okay, they can get it very clearly, but your environment probably big noisy, probably atmosphere. I mean, the particular background, of course, noise is there, but you can think about it and you can arrange, because you all are very good in basic technology, because they are very good in using their smart devices. In our case, of course, I mean, we have smart devices, but we don't use it in such a way. So why don't you use that also? So these are the things that I want to mention, because as I mentioned, they mention almost everything. So please keep in mind, you can research it, you can rehearse it, and you can contribute, and definitely first impression counts. Thank you.
Thanks. So as Kapil also said, I think Dilhan and Deirdre touched a lot of points that I just want to say. So I'll just give few examples only. And I'm very sorry, as Kapil mentioned, you cannot see my gestures, hand, face, or whatever it is, because I'm in the queue. Okay. So in case you're doubting it, this is me in the queue in the car right now. Okay. So the shed was supposed to pump, but they ran out of power. So that's why the planning went berserk. So comparing virtual versus physical, spoke to a few people and got some interesting things exactly on what Dilhan and Deirdre were saying. First is, I'll talk about the pros and the cons of both, so that, it's very interesting. This I got from the horse's mouth. So the same students who have faced both. So what they say is when you have physical interviews, when you have physical meetings, most often, the first time or the second time or third time, you get exams, some exams, you get to sit to certain things. At least they'll give an Excel sheet to do something just to see how good you are and so on. Okay. But with virtual, it doesn't happen that often. And even if it happens, they can figure things out much easier. We of course know how. Okay. Second thing is body language. Okay. I mean, like these young undergraduates, not undergraduates only, everybody, these young people do, rather would stay back and do it virtual than appear physically, because this generation sometimes feel that, they are being judged. Okay. They are being judged the way they look, they are being judged the way they do things like that. So sometimes they felt, virtual is better. Okay. And then the other one is there are a lot of non-verbal communications, exactly as the panel said, that, we can make use of. And because of that itself, people, sometimes young people prefer to have virtual things. And it's very, very interesting. I think all three of you will know, some people cannot manage eye-to-eye contact. That's a very strong thing when you interview a person. Okay. So that itself is sometimes a negative, sometimes something that drives people to go for virtual. Okay. But then with virtual, then with physical, there are some disadvantages. What these people said, one is traveling. It's not easy because depending on where the other office is, you have to travel. Sometimes you take public transport, and you are concerned whether your shirt or your dress gets crushed and so on. So it's not that easy. The other one is being punctual. Of course we will measure the person based on punctuality, but it's not that easy. Whereas if you did a virtual meeting, you can be spot on that at that moment, particular time, you can start the meeting. The other one is if you are working somewhere else and you have applied for a job, taking leave. I mean, like this, I've experienced recently also. That person found it very difficult to give us a time for the second interview. He was really pushing for virtual simply because since he's leaving the earlier job, he couldn't get leave. So that's why they would prefer virtual. The other one is, of course, dressing up. Some people do not like that. But exactly as I think Kapila mentioned, we need to know those people, because that's a part of them. That's about knowing them. And funny thing is, a lot of young people said physical interviews are very stressful. I mean, like, I think 4 of us come from generations where, it wasn't. But now these people feel it's a little bit of a stressful thing going to a physical interview, maybe because they know there's a virtual option also available. But there are also certain disadvantages of virtual also. Technical glitches. Okay, you never know what will happen. I mean, like your data connection might drop. So you can never, and exactly as Deidre said, a proper place. I mean, like I've interviewed people, behind them there are cupboards full of books and clothes and all sorts of things never cleaned up. That gives a first bad impression actually. So they never think of those things, the camera angle and all those, and then the disturbances. Recently I interviewed a person, in the background, a koha is shouting throughout. So those are lots of disturbances that can come. The other one is, since you cannot see the body language and the eye curtains, all those things, you never get to really know the person. I think you all will agree. We use these interviews not to check their degrees or their certificates or whatever. We use these interviews to find the person. Maximize this time and see, meya mona wage ekkenekda, meya apita hariyayida. Simple as that. And virtual interviews do not allow that facility. Okay, and sometimes especially bandwidth can also drop. So these are the issues that I came across when I spoke to these people when we compare physical versus virtual. Thank you.
Thank you all. And as you know, JESA is happening in 2022 for the 7th consecutive year. For the past several years, you have tied hand with us and developing the employability skills of undergraduates. So now we would like to know the effectiveness of such an event in the development of skills of our students. How much do you think these kind of awards are important for a university system? I would like to get insights for this question from 2 of you. Starting with Kapila sir.
Beg your pardon. I believe this opportunity should be given to Deirdre and Dilhan because reason is, okay, let me start this also. Like one thing I could mention there because normally you take the financial professions, they are introverts. But in my case, of course, I had to step out of this one and become extrovert. And next is, we got to recognize my sister Deirdre. Let me complete this, Deirdre and Dilhan, because they take care of most valuable resource in the world, human resource. So if I touch this one, I believe, okay, if I'm broke, I'll do, but I give the first five to them because they know in and out and they are there to basically lead. Thank you.
Sure. So,
Dilhan, I'll go first and then.
Deirdre, certainly.
Well, again, I think, first of all, I think it is, we should all appreciate the fact that JESA is getting feedback from the corporate world, right? I think that is number one, and we appreciate that very much, the relationships that the university has with us, and also the fact that JESA has continued this for 7 years. And we continue to partner because we see that check and adjust, that feedback that we give is incorporated to the curriculum, to the work that is done, and also how the students engage with corporates through internships and awards like this. So I think it has been a journey that has been evolving in terms of the skills, in terms of upgrading, in terms of staying relevant, I would say. And we see it to be very successful, and we've been sort of a partner with JESA over the past years because we see that consistent improvement, that consistent evolution towards the betterment. And I think programs like this, and also the other programs that we do with the university through JESA, supports to make sure that the curriculum, the students stay relevant to the job market. And as you know, the job market, again, is very competitive. We talk about people losing jobs or industries shutting or industries moving. But if you ask Dilhan or any of you today, in terms of recruitment, we all have challenges, right? It is because we struggle. We have challenges in terms of attracting the right talent at the right time. And we engage with universities, and we see that JESA is making this effort to make sure that employer that they put out, or the students that pass, the graduates that pass, are capable, compatible for employment. Dilhan, anything to add?
Yeah, Deirdre, I mean, the points that you were saying, I mean, I was just reflecting. In our times, we were never had, opportunity as such to get exposed to yourself to corporate. I mean, these are like very good platforms for students. I think JESA is doing a fantastic job. I mean, now in the 7th year, and I think Brandix got involved 4 years back. I mean, partnered or tied up with JESA. I mean, getting students exposed to modern way of assessing, I mean, being a part of assessment centers, and, getting an opportunity to assess your competencies. I mean, being an undergraduate is something as a student, you are really fortunate of, because, I mean, when we, I don't know, in 15, 17 years back when we were joining, we never had, in my university, I'll be very honest, I mean, we never had such opportunities. We learn after getting into the industry, but always we had that mindset of trying to explore and learn and then to move in the corporate life. But with JESA, I feel they are giving you a lot of opportunity to get yourself exposed. So that is something very, very important. And also as a student, keep in mind, I mean, participating into an assessment center is not something small. That is can be a lifetime experience that you're getting. So always get yourself, do some research. Not only Google, in YouTube now you will find a lot of knowledge on assessment centers, but try to upgrade yourself. It is not that JESA will bring everything in, but I always feel students have that responsibility to learn, explore and use these online platforms to make yourself aware. So I think that's a fantastic job done by JESA in these 7 years. And that's the from my side. Thank you.
Thank you for those words of awareness, sir and madam. We all know that JESA is not a prompt occasion or decision. Within its 7 years of history, JESA has gradually improved with so many new outstanding awards empowering young undergraduates with various skills. Since the modern working culture is a bit different due to the prevailing situation, do you have an idea of what kind of new skills should be appreciated by introducing new awards in this?
If I add to that, but I feel you have around 7 awards, but my feeling is, whether you need to introduce a new one or to better and, that is where, but I feel it, I don't know, you can, so I feel that is something you need to be focused. I don't know. Yes, you can introduce, 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, but I think there's a lot that we can do, because you have very good like leader award to team players, so there are a lot one can learn. I don't know, Deidre, you can certainly add. That's what
Well, totally agree. So I also believe quality over quantity, right? And if we can bring in, for example, your leadership award, if there's a mechanism for us to build in that whole emotional intelligence part into that space, or maybe if you're talking about, finance numbers or something like that, how do we sort of bring in some of our analytical sort of, that space into that, the digital space, the latest digital technologies that the organizations, the platforms that the organizations have. So I think it's really good to stick to the 7 awards that we have, but how we sort of incorporate the new modern ways or modern practices that the organizations are currently sort of working on, and incorporate that and give that awareness, I would think that would be really effective. So you focus on what you have, but keep on adding quality into it.
Yes.
Shall I say something? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah. So this is, I was not exposed to, JESA at all. So I did some research, and I was amazed, because I've been also educated, I said, from University of Colombo, and we never had these sort of things at that time, and I'm pretty impressed with what's going on with JESA. The activities, the recognitions that they do, it definitely motivates, encourages people, the younger ones who come in every year. Okay. One thing I wanted to say was, it's good to know that JESA is showing the importance, the recognition for things that are out of campus, or else what will happen is you will just finish your degree with a class and believe you have climbed the mountain and go out. No, JESA is doing something different. And I think you may agree, sometimes you will find that knowledge sometimes is far more valuable than the degree that you have acquired, what you get from this. So therefore, I'm pretty impressed with what's going on. And to add to what Deidre was saying about quantity over quality and so on, I also completely agree that, it should be kept to this. One thing that crossed my mind was, for example, now the purpose of this entire award scheme, the purpose is to make sure that, more and more undergraduates, improve their soft skill, do things better. So whether it makes sense just to have one award for the top leader, the best communicator and so on, or whether you want to select, like first, second, third of the communicator and so on. I don't know how it happens. I may be wrong. I do not know. But end of the day, I believe the purpose is to get as many as possible over the fence, not only 1 or 2 people. So maybe we can, look at something like this. And also now wise to select the best person, maybe, you can just have, sometimes we have this exam, just pass and fail only. Likewise, at least some courses for the students just to gain knowledge. I mean, like the best will win the award, but at least some similar course where, they can just learn to speak, learn to present, have a conversation in English, something, some small courses for people just to do and complete. At least they will feel they gain something, and that, you never know, might be the stepping stone for them to do something even better. That's what I feel.
Yes, if I'm add something, I totally agree with you all, starting with communication skills. Of course, that plays a vital role. Presentation skills, I mean, Adri and Dilhan must have observed this, being basically, regular members of this. I mean, there are some situations, of course, they got to improve that. And Adri very clearly mentioned that. Quality over quantity. Yes, I totally agree. Next is, okay, we have given them the opportunity to expand their capacities to different horizons. So if you take leadership, particular this one category itself, so we can let them to continue their basically journey. And at the same time, we can let them to, select the best out of best also. That was one of the requirements they have, because then they know that we are there basically moving forward. So if I also totally agree, rather than every year we are adding another category, we can stick to this and you can revisit also. At the same time, I would like to suggest, why do you get the opportunity of this, basically give the opportunity to these undergraduates and previous basically students also to get their views as well. Next is being a Sri Lankan, because I'm a Sri Lankan and you all are Sri Lankan, because we are there to do the communication. But what about connection? So let them to have the connection with, like our this corporate sector giants like Bilhan, then Ledri, and then Johan and all. Let them continuously engage with them, because that's the opportunity. And during our period, of course, we had to get training 3-4 years. But current, what I would like to mention is, you all please step into the corporate sector and please have the patience. So that also one of the requirements we got to basically share with them. I don't know whether we have particular category for that. And you will please, stay touched with this corporate sector and gain that knowledge. This I leave it a little. But coming back to this, I give the opportunity if I find that somebody is having very good leadership skill, because we have developed them, because they come with a solid foundation. So it's a matter of letting them to move forward, because I had the opportunity to join with this particular university. Work with them, interact with them during this career guidance. They had that one. After that, they started this JESA, and JESA, they converted this. So we see very big improvement. I think Deidre must have basically noticed last time, of course, we were together, we were basically having this particular communication and all. And we noticed the improvement. So that's a very good, credit you all get, because being outsiders, of course, we'll see. Because here, of course, we there to bridge the gap. And we see that, of course, that gap, of course, basically, very much lesser now compared to those days. So again, I would suggest that please practice and presentation skills, of course, very, very vital. So that I believe they can improve. And I also agree that we stick to this, or if you want to add something, one more. So after 1 or 2 years time, we can do. But I propose that coupled with leadership category. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for those insights. So finally, what are your tips or advices for encouraging our JESA candidates as well as the other undergraduates who are looking forward to gain and maintain their dream career path? Yes, starting with Johan, sir.
Okay. So, okay. So Dream career is something very interesting. Okay. Most of us don't find our dream career, and some of us do our career and find that at the end, that was the dream. So a dream career is, it's a very interesting term. So I'll just give few tips or, few advices from whatever I've learned to the audience. First is start with the end in mind. When you start your career, be very clear as to where you want to end. When I retire, who do I want to be? What do I want to have? Where should I be? What's the status? You may not always go there, but you have a plan. You do not start a career. Do not, start planning a career without the end in mind. It'll never go there, but it will take you, somewhere close. Make your career purposeful. We sometimes say, humbling job, have a purpose, have a target, have the end in mind. Second one is learn continuously without fear and shame. Now, that's something which I think all of us will agree. Learn whatever that comes across you. It can be anything, and it will definitely be useful. So one example I always give is, I used to be a Mercedes-Benz salesman, and my boss once told me, even if I get a chance to learn pottery, because you never know, the next sales pitch might be with a customer who loves pottery, and that itself is an icebreaker. Okay, likewise. Okay, third one is exactly as I think one of these two gentlemen said, hold fast to your values. I mean, like, your values are what make, what you're made of, is your image. So do not sacrifice your values for any reason, for any purpose, not at all. Okay, your values will make you who you are, and it is your brand image. As you go along the corporate ladder, there'll be enough of instances where it will be challenged. Okay, but people will talk about you and your values, if you hold fast to them. Second one, the next one is your personal brand. Of course, we talk about personal brand for your dream career, but look after it. It's like a priceless diamond. Okay, scratches here, scratches there, it starts affecting your brand. The other one is, I always believe in this statement, opportunities come in many ways in your life. Some come disguised. Okay, never say no to opportunities you get. I always say this. When I joined Devo, I was suddenly given an opportunity to organize a huge event. I was never into organizing, and I, took it as a burden. But that made me, learn, understand, and become hopefully an expert in organizing events. So likewise, never say no to any opportunities that come across you. Last but not least, do what you enjoy, or else, you will never find your dream job, and the dream will never find you. And find your passion. If you're passionate about something, that is your dream. That's my word. Thanks.
Yeah, I think thanks, Johan. I mean, since you touch these values, principles, I also strongly, I'm a strong believer also in that. I feel your qualification or the skills what you learn today or even in this forum is just an entry ticket. But you always keep in mind values, principles, and I mean creating, and positioning yourself in the organization is something that matters for your journey. And the other piece what I thought for the to add to what Johan said, like think inward. I mean, do reflections. That is where you improve your journey, right? Because you will get a lot of feedbacks. And I spoke this, when you have this diversity and other things coming in, people share a lot of perspectives. So you have to be a person who always do reflections that will help. Listen to feedback. And there was something very interesting what Johan spoke, like listening to understand against listening to reply. So there's a big message behind it. Just try to understand that, and always in the journey try to be an expert. Expert comes with experience, education, exposure, and experiments. Like those 4 keep in mind. And also I wanted to tell, like don't find shortcuts in your career. You should have patience, and you have to have that. Because some people, when they think that I'm not trying to criticize, but when you don't think that, okay, I got a first class or I have a second up or whatever, but that's just the entry ticket. I mean, after that, it all how you brand yourself, how you position yourself is what matters. So I also just, this is something that I didn't plan to tell, but I just thought to tell when this struck my mind, when Johan talked about that listening part. Do what you can't. Keep in mind always, do what you can't. The thing that sometimes challenge you to, you feel, no, I can't do this. I might not be the best of doing this. No, take that challenge and do. But always in that, not compromising your values and principles. I think that's what I wanted to add as a piece of advice. Thank you.
So few things from me as well. I think Johan and Dilhan mentioned a few, but still there are a few that I also hold very close to my heart. So one thing that I always tell my colleagues, the new colleagues who join us is careers go in all directions, right? It is not always just as a ladder. It also goes as a lattice. So always don't think, okay, I have a finance background and my end game is to become, head of finance in the organization or whatever. We have so many examples amongst ourselves people who've come from finance backgrounds have moved to operations, to marketing, to done well, and then, become CEOs of business units. HR people who've sort of had the HR qualification, but done really well in operations. And marketeers who moved across to become really good leaders leading organizations. So when you look at your career, don't just say, okay, this is my qualification and it is just one direction. Careers go in all directions. So please keep that in mind. And also the whole piece about values. I can't reiterate more on how important it is, because that is the authenticity of a person, right? And that is something that anybody can't take from you. And we were doing some research the last couple of weeks in terms of organizations, because right now at MAS, we do measure what is done and how it is done. So how is the whole values and behaviors part? And there is a weightage, right? Some organizations give it 80% for KPIs, 20% for values and behaviors. And the trend now, some of the big organizations, right, the multinationals, they don't actually assess your KPIs. Your entire performance review is based on your values and behaviors. That is how important organizations now, the global organizations, look at values. So please uphold your values in everything that you do. And never stop learning, because it helps you to be the better version of you every day. So whatever your age, whatever your occupation, whatever, wherever you are in that whole life cycle, and never stop learning. And I think it was Johan who touched on purpose, right? I think the pandemic sort of gave us time to self-reflect, to reprioritize our life. And during that, there was a lot of us who actually thought, what is my purpose? And some organizations looked at what is the organization's purpose. So once you have your purpose, once you've identified your purpose, try and link it to the work you do so that your work becomes purposeful work. And that will give you self-satisfaction and, for you to thrive in what you do. And the day you become a leader, after graduating, you get into an organization, you sort of, work your way through. And the day you become a leader, be a truly inspirational leader, because that is who will actually develop young graduates like you who come into the organization. And finally, be a change maker. Every organization wants Graduates wants, employees wants colleagues to come in and do things differently, think differently, ask different questions. So be the change maker to the organization, because that is something that the organizations actually look for right now. So those are a few things that I actually had in my mind. Kapila, over to you.
Thank you, Deidre. And let me start from this Deidre's one. What she said, values and beliefs, okay, behaviors you have. Because here, of course, you step into corporate world and you're going to work with minimum supervision. Whenever we mention about it, we mention about honesty and integrity. So I know that my colleagues, of course, they maintain that and their integrity is to the highest because they do their own, because the supervision must be minimal. Oh no. And next reason, I have noticed most of you all, basically, I mean, you stay focused, but a little, basic percentage, they don't stay focused. For example, sometimes they stay focused on marketing. They do, whenever they do the studies, marketing, HR, and finance. So what I say is, why don't you stay focused and do finance if necessary? Do that only and try to gain that knowledge. After come to this corporate world, you can do that. Okay, you can do masters and all. Sometimes you lose focus. What we did was we stayed focused and we achieved that. And we took one step at a time. And very clearly, my colleagues mentioned, yes, of course, we had enough obstacles. Yes, that's how it started also. Obstacles gives opportunity, has capacity. You can expand your wings in different horizons. Yes, we got to do it. Whenever you do that one, not only you give the opportunity to your friends also, because they also follow you. During our term, of course, we had to do a lot of basically research and research. But in your case, of course, organizations, they are waiting for you because the university lecturers and all, you can use them as your mentors. I believe like this Dilhan mentioned, they did mention, and at the same Johan also, Johan clearly mentioned about this mentoring. Because mentor, of course, guide you in a correct direction. Sometimes you can save your time also. I mean, you don't have a trial and error method then. No need to apply that because everything is at your basically fingertips. Because technology plays a vital role here. So please grab it and use that opportunity. Because this university, how they went ahead with, earlier I mentioned that, they had this career guidance unit. So they start thinking differently. They very clearly mention. Because if I mention about my field, my background also, I came from science field and I step into this finance. So probably because of that, I am not an introvert. I'm see the way of thinking because I stayed focused. I had to stay focused. So there's no doubt that you all are very much better than us, isn't it, Deidre? The cream of the country, because you all are future leaders, because you take our country flag to greater heights. This is our expectation. Think about this, Deidre, then Dilhan, and then Johan. We are living in Sri Lanka. Why we do it? Because we want to do kind of a contribution to the country. Definitely, we are to do this. We are to be a leader to ourselves. So leader within you, you got to basically ignite that, and please stay focused. Take care of yourself. What I say is daily because they got to take care of themselves. Right time period. And very clearly mentioned time dimension. Johan mentioned that you got to stay focused. Yes. If you do that, first you develop. Next is daily we know that one Dilhan because I come as a single person. Now I represent my panelist, 4. And not only that, we are representing you all also. We represent the countrymen, Sri Lankans. So probably 22.5 million. So you also part of this one. Try to be that and contribute every time. Honesty and integrity, of course, I salute those basically 2 qualities. Please stay focused and please make those qualities permanent. So with that, of course, there's no doubt that because your parents also, they shed their sweat and tears. Sometimes you just talk to them how many times they starve because they want you to progress. They hide their basic difficulties. So we know it because we understand the pulse of the humans. So why do you do that one? So this is our expectation. When you move up in the ladder, you gain something. And if you basically let your light basically raise, also to raise that. So with those qualities, of course, you can take our country to great height. So this is all about what I mentioned. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, and stay focused, and please continue this relationship, because I normally stay in touch with you, because that's a connectivity, because Sri Lankan, they have this good quality. And finally, please love what you do. So if you talk to these panelists and your lecturers and all, see the way they came all the way from there to here now. Please love what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and experience with our undergraduates. So I'm pretty sure that our undergraduates have gotten a sound knowledge of the cooperative view of employability skills and JESA. I'm quite sure that all the participants now know what is the cooperative view of employability skills and JESA. So I deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks for this valuable session. First and foremost, I would like to thank our panelist for today, Chief Finance Officer at Alpha Apparels, Mr. Kapila H.K. Mitraratne, General Manager of Human Resources at Bandrick Essentials, Mr. Dilhan Fernando, General Manager of Corporate Communication at DEMO, Mr. Johan Tilakaratne, and Director of Organizational Development of Human Resources at MAS Holdings, Ms. Deirdre Kandappa. Thank you very much, dear all, for spending your immensely valuable time to be here with us today and sharing your broad knowledge with us. Your in-depth knowledge and invaluable expertise altogether are indeed a perception to us. Also, I express my deep sense of gratitude to Professor Sudath Manchula Amarasena, the head of the Department of Decision Sciences and the director of the Career Guidance Unit, for the guidance, encouragement, and support that you have given making our workshop success. My heartfelt thanks go to Mrs. Chaturangani Tennakon, Career Advisor of the Career Guidance Unit, and the Senior Treasurer of the Career Skills Development Society for extending your helping hand at all moments of need. Next, I thank all the members of the organizing committee for all the support and commitments and in making this event a success. And last but not least, I would like to thank our amazing audience for joining us to make this session a success. Thank you very much for your participation. With that, we shall mark the end of our session. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank you
everyone.
all the
Thank
very
you.
best, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.